Today, we're talking with Sharon Harrison, CMO of Gravyty, about engagement and how that drives growth on every level. Welcome to episode 49 of BeyondSaaS. I am Jason Niedle, founder of Tethos, and we solve growth problems for tech companies through strategy, design, cold email, educational campaigns, and much more. Today, I'm excited to explore tech company growth with Sharon Harrison. She is the CMO of Gravyty, which pushes engagement with AI-powered solutions to connect and support the student and donor lifecycle. They serve over 2,700 education and nonprofit organizations with the newest technology and data-driven insights to help build stronger communities. So, for example, their virtual assistant can help engage students to build the funnels. They help drive student success and outcomes. And ultimately, all of that helps create engaged alumni. They've recently merged three brands, Ivy.ai, Ocelot, and Gravyty. And I'm going to let you explain that, Sharon, to see where that synergy all happens and how that is changing everything for higher education. Sharon excels at driving growth through integrated multi-channel campaigns. She recently joined the Chief Network, which is a peer mentorship community for female executives, underscoring her commitment to leadership development. And I also hear that you're an avid golfer, so welcome.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being here, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Hey, is it true that you're a student of art history?
I am, although, I feel like it's one of those things that went in one ear and out the other with, all of the other things I was busy doing and distracting myself with in college. Although I do enjoy kind of looking back and dipping into things like Antiques Roadshow and pretending like I know what they're talking about and giving the very knowing nod along with the experts.
I love to offer listeners something right off the bat. Do you have a golden nugget for us?
Let's go with two golden nuggets. Although, some of them might be like tarnished bronze at this point, but we'll see if they resonate. So the first that I would share is that we shouldn't be afraid to pivot. And what I mean by that is whether it's in your sort of professional life or your personal life, to not be afraid to constantly kind of A/B test things and change direction. So I'll give a couple little examples, right? Certainly in the world of marketing, 20 years ago when I started, it was that you'd be working on a print campaign that was going to have, a full page ad on the back of the sports section for the Wall Street Journal. That took, a month of planning. You locked in the creative, you did the photo shoot. And once it was done, it was done. And there was no adjustment to be made. We're fortunate now where as we are building a campaign, we're kind of building the plane as we fly, right? Like that's just the speed at which we do things now. And so we're able to have a thesis going into it and assign projected outcomes and budget. And as we work through the execution of it, we're able to adjust the creative, the outcomes, et cetera. And as it runs, we're also able to look in real time and understand, is this working or not? And the easy path is not always the best path, right? The easy path is set it and forget it. But the harder path will give you the better results where you're looking at it, you're iterating, and you are making changes and adjusting. And I think that that's almost counterintuitive to people. And it's a lot uncomfortable, let's be honest, because it's admitting in real time, this is failing, but we can fail and move on and still get a successful outcome from it. The other pivot, when we think about how it applies to us as individuals and not sort of as the collective team, is in your career trajectory. So coming out of college, my understanding was that, you pick a career in an industry and that's the very linear path that your life will take. And I think that's
Forever.
kind of antiquated, right? Like how often does that happen anymore unless you are highly, highly specialized, right? A doctor, lawyer, et cetera. So, looking at my career as an example, starting out in the sports industry for almost 2 decades and then taking a hard right into ed tech and SaaS, seemingly disjointed, right? There's no way that just looking at it from a one-dimensional perspective, you could assess that and go, well, that makes perfect sense. But when I look at 20 years of experience in various roles within sports management and marketing, I built a toolkit. And as long as you're agile enough in your approach and willing to pivot, you can take that toolkit and apply it in other areas. So that's my one golden nugget, pivot. And also, if you're a Friends fan, anytime you hear the word pivot, you're immediately thinking of Ross Geller and you can hear it in your heads. If you haven't seen that clip, Google it. It's worth it.
Hey, it's Jason with a 10-second note from our sponsor, Tethos. I wanted to offer you our Hypergrowth Playbook. It's a free guide that I put together, a compilation of our first 20 or so episodes of learning from this show, which includes book recommendations, golden nuggets, and the amazing learnings from all these tech leaders. Simple to get it. Just drop the word growth in the comments and I'll send it to you, or head on over to tethos.com/playbook, and that's TETHOS.com/playbook, and you'll have it right there. All right, back to our episode.
The other golden nugget, if you'll indulge me, is on alignment, right? We hear that word is thrown out all the time. And the, typical relationship between sales and marketing is not aligned. It's usually a finger pointing relationship. You haven't given us enough leads. Well, you haven't closed the leads that we've given you. In very simple terms, I look at it and really like the philosophy of it's not just sales and marketing alignment that needs to happen. It's sales, marketing, and customer success alignment. And so the better aligned with your revenue model that your entire team, your entire go-to-market team can be, the more successful. Because if your marketing team understands that how they are talking to prospects in the market informs how that prospect then moves through the sales cycle, and the messaging needs to all be consistent, right? And all of that. And they move towards the middle of that bow tie. Once they move to the right side of that bow tie, you will have set the right expectations to deliver then a healthy customer that is looking for that rapid time to value and is ultimately engaged with the product, and that becomes your recurring revenue. So I look at that and go, that alignment doesn't just apply, to the Gravyty business, for example, but that's also how we view our customers. That's how, in the terms that we talk to them about. If at Gravyty, we're looking at the entire higher education life cycle, we're thinking about how do you talk to your potential students, your applicants, in a way that sets them up to be invested and engaged alumni. And I would argue that that applies in any industry, where you're building a funnel, and it works better if you can set that up to be a recurring revenue source than just a one and done. So that's a lot of talking for me. I'd be curious if either of those nuggets resonate with you.
Oh, yeah. So we could have a whole podcast, I think, about either one of the topics. First of all, I love the idea, like as a marketer, I'm thinking about the A/B testing all the time. And nowadays it's A to I or A to Z testing or whatever. All day long, we're A/B testing, A to Z testing items, but I haven't particularly thought to apply that directly to my life, right? So does this work or does that work? And let's just compare one to the other. And I love that. And then this idea of alignment from top to bottom, I think there's some people that I speak with that really understand it, that in the beginning of the process, you really have to understand something. And I kind of talk about Fiverr all the time. Like I could go in Fiverr and get a logo for $50, right? But that logo doesn't have any understanding of who I am, what it's supposed to represent, who the target audience is, or any of this through line of the whole thing. And the logo is really a small part of this mass understanding of who we are as an organization. And I think to your point there, like the better we understand ourselves top to bottom, then the more we can actually serve that audience that we're working to serve. And I think it's just, like I said, we could talk for the entire time about that if we wanted to.
Yeah, but that through line, right? Like that's what you need. And it's making sure that everybody that's talking about what you do, how you do it, why you do it, is saying the same thing. We talk about consistency of messaging, but it's really like, you've got to really understand, why does your customer care? Like, what are they in this for? Because that's what you've got to speak to. You don't want to talk over their head. You don't want to talk around them. You want to talk right at them about the things that matter. And so the clearer you can be on the value of your solution, the value of the work that you're doing, and really have your entire go-to-market function. And I would argue your product team, right? Like, we look at it very holistically. Does everybody understand how what we're doing matters to customers from a very granular level? And does everybody understand that this company succeeds or fails by virtue of the entire contribution, right? To go back to that like alignment piece and the finger pointing, we really pull back from that and think along the lines of, if we don't hit our number at the end of the year, that's not just the fault of the sales team, right? If we think about it in sports terms, because that's what I default to, the ball doesn't get past the goalie without going through everybody else first, right? That ball had to get past your forward line, past your midfield, past your defenders, and then the goalie. There's a lot of steps to get there.
So I have a fun little game in relation to what you were saying. 9 out of 10 times when I go and do a deep dive discovery with a company, We'll go in there and we'll ask the executive team, what's your mission, vision, values, blah, 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 right? Then
Yeah.
we'll go into the company and we'll say, and we'll ask, salesperson A, okay, how do you explain your
Yeah.
company, right? And write it down. And then, customer service rep team and ask them the same question. And then like anyone who's outwardly facing, we'll ask them that question. And 9 out of 10 times, there's absolutely no alignment with what the executives say is the mission. And then with how people on a day-to-day basis are explaining what's happening. And it's like, if this is not right, it's never going to be right. So where
Right.
is it the wrong mission? Is it the wrong statement? Is it wrong training? Like you need to get in alignment.
But in order to do, it's almost overwhelming to try to think about, okay, how do we get everybody rowing in the same direction? So I don't know what the appetite of the audience for your podcast is for slightly off color language. So we'll keep it with the abbreviation.
They're okay. They'll be okay.
Okay. What we found successful before and we're working to operationalize here at Gravyty, prior to Gravyty, I was with Ivy.ai, and that's how I, by virtue of the merger, was placed in seat at Gravyty. And so what the sales leader and I put in place at Ivy in order to address that sort of disconnect or it's not the distillation of the messaging, it's really almost the adaptation by role of the messaging. We implemented WTF Wednesdays, but that was really where we polled the entire customer-facing teams at the company and also the marketing team onto a call. And it was, there was a topic every week, and it could be, role plays. It could be addressing specific use cases. It could be competitor objection handling. And what it allowed for was the collective learning, right? It's one thing to hear how an account executive handles an objection, but a customer success manager may run into that same objection in the renewal process. How do they handle it? And is it the same or is it different? What's worked, what hasn't? And how can marketing then take that and deliver some proactive interventions? So we found that to be really, really helpful in hearing how, just like you said, hearing how these different parts of the company are speaking to the mission, vision, and values of the organization.
Well, on top of that, that's super smart because you're also getting to find the best practices and what's working and what's not and getting feedback. So there's a lot of different levels of great about that. Generally, it's hard to find women in tech to show up on the podcast. And I was wondering, why do you think that is and what needs to change about maybe the industry or hiring or what people are doing?
Hey, I'm just curious, how much time do you have? Because this is a great topic. I feel like we could really roll with this. I don't want to paint it with broad strokes, right? It'd be very easy to say this is a male-dominated industry because X, Y, and Z historical perspective. What I really think it is that women have just not pursued and spoken up enough in the roles that they're in. They haven't been given the chance. And that's not necessarily a male leadership thing. That's also a female leadership thing, right? As a female leader or as a leader in general, are you evaluating talent based on talent? And are you mentoring those that come behind you, right? What are you doing to pay it forward? And so, yes, women in tech, harder to come by. I have seen a proliferation of late. I really enjoy, the Chief Network because it is very helpful to have those conversations and find pathways to elevate women. I think also women tend to be, I years ago founded my own sports management company that was focused on female athletes. And I think it was the same sort of thing. I recognized that the male athletes were getting higher dollar value sponsorships because they were more willing to say, well, I'm worth this. And females, again, broad strokes, have a harder time defining and speaking up for their value. I find myself doing it, right? When I, would be looking for a job, I'd read the criteria, be like, oh, yeah, but I don't do that one thing. And I know there have been studies, and I'm sure we've all seen them, where, well, if a man looks at a job description and there's 5 things that he's not qualified for, he'll still apply. The woman will go, never mind, I'm not qualified for it. So I think it's a combination of things. It's a combination of, generationally how we were raised and the family dynamics, right? Like that's something that has to be part of it. Who is the default parent or caregiver in a family? What additional strain does that put on, in this context, a female? Is she able to devote the time to pursue a higher level career. So I think it's a lot of things. I know I've just given you like a potpourri of reasons, but I find it really interesting, and I really like the mentorship part. I feel very lucky to be part of a leadership team at Gravyty that is majority females. And I know that the women within the organization also appreciate seeing that. I also have a marketing team that is a majority women, and I love it, because what I see is not the stereotype of catty, backstabbing kind of behavior, but what I see is a lot of collaboration and a team culture that is founded on being authentic and bringing your whole self to work. And I think that's when we get the most out of people.
I love that. So tell us now, we've touched on it a bunch of times, tell us about Gravyty and the mergers and what you're doing there.
Yeah. So I think it's a really neat story. Gravyty has been a leader in alumni and donor engagement and fundraising for over a decade. And by virtue of being backed by the same private equity company, Gravyty was introduced to Ivy and Ocelot. And so Ivy and Ocelot, prior to the merger, were competitors. We were head to head on every deal, and we were watching what the other was doing all the time. It was fun, right? You have to have a rabbit. You've got to have a rabbit that you're chasing. And so we were each other's rabbits. And so the thesis behind the merger was, well, let's take the top 2 AI-powered virtual assistant communication platforms in higher education. Let's get the best of both worlds and combine that technology, but let's also bring it together with the leader in alumni and donor engagement and fundraising. And now we can really support the entire education lifecycle. And by that, I mean not just the student and alumni experience, but also the business of education. So 2 different paths there, but what we're looking to drive is efficiency and outcomes. On the business side, if we can increase operational efficiency, address staffing shortages, really help keep the dollars coming through the door. I mean, it sounds a little bit callous to say, and I think in higher ed, we're always reticent to talk about the dollars and cents of, right? It's always been this very esoteric thing, but it's a business. And so how can we support the business functions, but also ensure that that's in alignment with student success and outcomes, right? So as an example, my oldest daughter is a rising junior at the University of Maryland. And so I pay very close attention when she was a junior, senior in high school, how were institutions recruiting her? Right? It was all direct mail, right? Your mailbox is full every day, and newsflash, she didn't look at any of it. It all went in the trash or recycling, depending. What she did respond to was when she would get text messages or when she would see something on social media. And then when she would go to look for more information, she would look on the school's website, but it would lose her after a few minutes because, well, it's too hard to find exactly what I'm looking for. I don't want to read through pages. Like students it's a generation, they are not interested. They don't want to make a phone call. They want the information on demand, right? So our technology supports that, right? So we're building a bigger top of funnel for the institutions by making information easily accessible. And then we help get the students onto campus and then keep them on campus and support their career objectives by making career information easily available or making sure they have the information about graduation to send to their parents. So we're really just an additional headcount for each department on campus without, we're not a fully benefited employee. We're there in the background doing all the things that you don't want your staff taking the time to do. They can be doing higher value activities. And then when we look at the alumni side, how can we support alumni and advancement offices to really drive that recurring donor, right? We have major gift officers, but we also have folks like me. When I donate to my alma mater, I am not in that major gift officer target demographic. I wish I was, but I am just not. And so how does the institution keep the average person engaged, informed, and also provide them with that alumni network, right? I know that I've benefited from the alumni network, and I now also am part of it and helping mentor other students or connecting them to career opportunities. So there's a tremendous amount of value on that post-grad part of the life cycle. So that was very long-winded. Can you tell I'm in marketing? There's like a surplus of words at any time.
But I love this idea. So I still have the dream of not being able to find my class. I had it a month ago or something that I was on my university campus and I had no idea where I was going.
Yes.
And that's kind of indicative, I think, of how complicated it can be to figure out any of this stuff. Like, how do I know how to apply? And so my wife is a voice teacher and she has all these students and they're continually applying to multiple schools and everybody has different things going on and you have to research the information. And that's just the application process, not, notwithstanding going there and then graduating and like, how do I stay in contact? So having chatbots and having information and having a way to really keep this engagement going, I think is amazing, especially using technology.
Yeah, you make a great point. So when we add that complexity of the application process, but also financial aid, what
Mm,
a dumpster fire right now. Forgive me, but I think we can all kind of collectively agree on that, where there's so much confusion around it. And the administrators are just as befuddled and frustrated, right?
mm.
Like the fund allocations are late, so they're late getting the disbursements out to students. Imagine the volume of questions they're getting when students and parents are counting on that, right? And then you add a layer to it where there's this not concept, but this population of students that are first generation. So I benefited from having two parents that were both college graduates, and my children benefit from that as well. But what about those students that are the first in their family? And so they have no one to help them figure out the application process or how to apply for financial aid or understand what classes to sign up for. So how do you make information available for them when they're ready to consume it? And in a way that's digestible. And so that's really kind of the philosophy behind this whole merger, right? Like, let's make sure that we are, meeting students and alumni where they are. That phrase is a little bit worn out, but that's because it's true, right? Where they are in their life, where they are economically, where they are digitally. Let's meet them in those places so that they have what they need when they're ready to make a decision.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about growth really fast. How are you growing Gravity? Like, what tools, what outreach are you using? Because this is very specific audiences and kind of a resistant field. Like, education is not particularly easy to make.
Yeah.
And I was a professor for 8 years at Chapman University on the side, right? I was doing marketing here and then I'd go at night and do the professorship thing. And I would see the administration side of things, which I guess I shouldn't comment publicly on. But it's not always a smooth process, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Administratively, right? So how are you reaching in and getting these people to do things? How are you dealing with long engagement cycles? And, what are you doing?
I think this is where that great alignment comes into play, right? We have a very clear understanding of our ICP. We really understand the consideration process, the academic cycle. We know that their budgets come out July 1. So we understand when decisions are being made on technology purchases, when they are in budgeting season, when they might have additional funds left over. We understand when there are spring giving days and they do not want to hear from us at all because they are head down, fall giving days, right? We understand that. And so our strategies are built around those calendars, that buying cycle. We know that it's about a 6 to 9 month sales cycle. So what we're doing now, we will hope to see the benefit of in Q4 and Q1 next year. So it really is, that obviously then permeates the strategy. What channels are you using? What are you messaging about? And so we combine these sort of longer tail campaigns and strategies with these much more quick turn, dipping into the white space of our customer base. How can we cross-sell or upsell? Because now we have these almost 2,800 customers, and some of them use all of our products across their campus. Some of them only use one or the other. And so how do we drive that full life cycle adoption? Because the real value of that comes at in the CIO decision-making, budgeting, right? We're seeing a lot of system consolidation because, oh my gosh, we didn't realize, but somehow we ended up with 8 different CRMs across campus. That's a nightmare to manage and service, let alone the budgetary impact when you can't capitalize on any kind of volume discounting, right? It's just a nightmare. And so that's really the sort of intersection point for us. And so it's talking to those decision makers, but this is what is so interesting, I think, about higher ed, is that we could sell into the individual departments and have done across all 3 now merged companies. We can talk to the admissions team. They have their own budget. We could talk to financial aid. They have their own budget. the one-stop IT help desk, alumni advancement. But again, then we're getting the disparate purchasing, and the institution isn't really benefiting from the full budgetary impact, but also from the technology impact. So we've got to find a way to tell both stories, right? How can you get the maximum for your students while also getting the maximum savings for the institution? I don't know if that answered your question, but hopefully there was something in there to work with.
For sure. How do you plan and project growth? Like, what are your growth goals? With 2,800 institutions, it's not like there's a lot left over. So are you growing internally or seeking to grow internally with extra product adoption and other departments? How do you look at this growth challenge?
Yeah, well, I think you nailed it, right? We've got to look at it from twofold. There is still a lot of net new sort of green space for us across the institutions. There's about 25 or so, 100 more institutions that we don't have penetration into. We have a brilliant data scientist on our team that's able to give us some like little top secret nuggets that we can extract from the internet, where we can see who's using our competitors. And so we can take a very targeted approach into those institutions and try to intercept, do some really, I get excited because it's really that like head-to-head competition again, right? Where we can try to displace those competitors and know that those institutions already have an appetite for this technology, right? So that's the green light. I love that. That's not the worst conversation you can get into, is where it's, what's a chat box? You're like, this is going to be like a 12-month sales cycle on this one. So we look at those kind of intent signals. We look at the white space in our customer base, because we do have, on the Ivy and Ocelot platform side, we do have a lot of, I'll call it a non-enterprise customer, meaning they have a few departments or a handful of departments utilizing the technology. But that means that there's, 10 other departments that should be using the technology. We have a lot of customers that are just using sort of the OG legacy Gravyty products on the alumni and advancement side. And so we also then want to stitch together the story for them and help them understand how integrating this new Ivy and Ocelot platform for enhanced engagement would benefit them. So that's, a couple of different layers, but then there's also just generally the net new, which we have the opportunity to craft a different conversation there. And so multiple sort of growth paths, because if it's an institution that hasn't got any of our solutions, the question is, what are they using? Do they have an appetite? And then we get into the whole DIY versus buy conversation, which I am really geeking out right now. So you can rein me back in if I'm like way off in the netherlands of not interesting, Sharon, tone it down. But the DIY versus buy thing in AI is so fascinating, because it comes down to a managed service versus self-managed. Do you at the institution want to potentially add headcount to build and manage this, new platform that could be built off of any open source large language model, or use something that's white labeled? Or do you want to go with a managed service where we'll build it for you, we'll maintain it for you, and you don't have to add headcount? So it's really interesting to understand, like, okay, what's the why behind the DIY option? And it usually comes down to, well, that way we know exactly what is happening and we can really prescribe. When we hear that, that makes me go, oh, I have not done a good job at my job. I have not done a good job telling the story of why our technology is better than that and how we already address those things.
One of my favorite topics to get into is constraints and internal constraints. If you had a magic wand and you could grow something or enhance it or adjust it or resolve the problem internally, and you could wave that magic wand and enhance one of your systems to make you grow faster, what would you do? What constraint would you get rid of?
Yeah, well, budget. Is that a fair answer?
Resources?
Yeah, I think that, there's a world in which resources are endless.
I guess the question, if we dig deeper on that, is like, what's not getting done then? There's always something in marketing that we know we should be doing, right?
Always. God, that's almost like a scary question to answer, isn't it? Like,
It is.
Well,
that's why I wait till like 3/4 of the way through.
You're like,
it's like, ask the scary questions
warmed up now. Let me check out what I can get out of it.
Yeah, that's right. Sharon's good. Now let's ask her a hard question.
What is the thing? I think it's more that priorities. It's setting your priorities, because if everything is important, nothing is important. So all the resources, tooling, headcount, all of it doesn't mean anything if you're trying to be everything to everyone. And so what we're battling right now, not battling, but I think just by virtue of bringing 3 companies together, 3 teams, 3 technologies, 3 product stacks rather, and then also all of the tech that supports each part of our business function, we're really having to get very clear on the priorities. And so in the marketing side of things, it's okay, what population are we trying to capitalize on? And what do we need in order to do that? Everything else needs to be put in the parking lot. It needs to be a not right now. I mean, right from like the asks from other teams, from outside the company, but also the tooling that we're using, right? I don't want to pay for something that we're just not using and won't use for this year because it is not aligned with our priorities. The converse of that is I need to add the things that we need. I've got scope of work to sign in my inbox right now for Goldcast because we need to do a better job with our slicing and dicing of our video content because we need to do more with that. That lands better with audiences. They want to listen to a 30-second clip and not read, a 5-page case study. So it's looking for things like that, not anything, but most things that are AI powered. It seems very rote at this point to say an enterprise license for ChatGPT, right? So that it's restricted. We can put things in it. We can fine tune. You can have a brainstorming conversation with this platform and get further along in the ideation process so that it's not a cold start every time. Using Grammarly, I have placed a very high premium on using good grammar, spelling things correctly, and that goes across the entire organization. Anything that's going out as an internal comm or an external comm needs to be reflective of the standards that we have at the organization. So it all comes back to, for me, priorities.
You don't like sending misspellings and bad grammar to university executives?
Oddly enough, no, right? Like when I think back to some of the papers I turned in and the red markings on it, right? Like that's a battle scar. And yeah, I'm not willing to get an F on my my email writing.
I told my students, because I was doing a communication course, visual communication design, and so I made them do a resume that actually looked nice. And I said, if you turn it in with a typo or a grammar error, you lose a grade instantly. I don't care if it's 1 letter. Because this is your professional world. Like you can't look at it. And I won't hire people here at my company. If I get a typo in their piece, I'm not going to hire them because we do calendars that are 100,000 units. So if you got the date wrong, what happens?
Well, and there's just no excuse anymore, right? There's just no excuse. I'm not saying use GPT to write your resume, but have GPT read it and tell you if there's, right? Like we used to all send our resume. Like I have 3 sisters and 2 brothers. And so before I'd send a resume out, I'd send it to my siblings, be like, can you please read this and tell me, did I miss anything? Is anything misspelled, right? You're my proofreaders. We just don't need that anymore.
So I want to let you go because I know we're getting long on your episode here, and I thank you so much for being here. We've talked about some really good growth topics. We've talked about being in alignment. We've talked about understanding your ICP. We've talked about art history.
We've really covered all the basics.
What do you really wish other leaders knew, CMOs knew, like about how to grow sales?
Communicate. And by communicate, I mean be really, in spite of how I've communicated on this podcast, be very concise in understanding the value of your product, of your organization, of your people. Get very tight on that. And do also the other side of it is do a lot of listening. You'll inevitably be like your prospect or your audience, they will tell you what they want if you're listening close enough.
I think that's a huge key because communication requires both. But I think in society today, communicate often means speak or write. Like communication often means push, but communication has to be both.
Directional. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, 100%. Did I forget any topics today? Is there anything else you wanted to add before we jump off?
No, this was wonderful and such a great conversation. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity.
I love it. It was super interesting for me. Where can our audience find you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn, but also I would encourage you to check out the Gravyty website, gravyty.com.
gravyty.com, Gravyty. Sharon, thank you so much for being on BeyondSaaS. For tech leadership out there, we're committed to exploring tech growth. And you can find me, Jason Niedle, at tethos.com, tethos.com. And of course, don't forget your lead magnet, your useful lead magnet at tethos.com/podcast. If you got some value today, please share the episode with a friend. I love questions from you or for future guests. And until next time, this is BeyondSaaS.